Hi, everybody. We're going to do a little introductions at this time. My name is Jillian. I am 32 years old and from Michigan. I've been living with type 1 diabetes since I was 8 years old, and I am also a type 1 sibling.
And I'm Mila Clark Buckley. I'm from Houston, Texas, and I'm 30 years old. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in 2016. My mother also has type 2 diabetes. And I'm currently managing right now with multiple daily injections, oral meds, and using a CGM.
What's up, everybody? My name is Sahil. I've been type 1 diabetic since 1998, so 22 years, and I'm 27 right now. I'm using a pump to monitor all my insulin, and I've actually been using some oral medication as well. Just started that, which has been really helpful. And been fairly involved since college and looking to continue staying involved with the JDRF community.
Hi guys, my name is Kiri Cheney. I live in San Diego and I have been a type 1 for 5 years. I am also the mom to a type 1 child. My daughter, she is 11 years old and also has type 1. We were diagnosed 2 months apart, and I'm 31 and was diagnosed at the age of 26. I use Dexcom and the Tandem t:slim pump with Control-IQ.
Awesome. So we did all our introductions and we're going to dive into everything. And just a reminder, there's a little Q&A box. So if anybody out there has any questions, feel free to type them in. We will try our best to answer all of them. So we're going to just jump right in. And Sahil, I would love to discuss with you what it's like living with type 1 diabetes in the Indian community. I know that you do tons of incredible dancing. If you want to kind of discuss what you do with diabetes and in your community.
Yeah, no problem. Starting off, I work as an engineer. I work with a cybersecurity company right now. That's my 9 to 5. But on the side, I have my own dance academy, as well as my own entertainment company where we provide event coordination and DJ services for private events. So that's how I stay busy. But within the diabetic community, what we try, within the Indian community with diabetes, what we try and do and what we're always trying to showcase is there's a large type 2 community within the South Asian community, and the differentiation isn't always so clear. So our job right now is just to more so showcase that, hey, there are differences and there are different ways people react, and there are things that we are limited with, but by no means are we confined to any sort of bubble or stereotype that people have presumed without, without looking too much into it. There's just the amount of times I'm sure all of us can relate that we've been denied a piece of cake or an extra sip of pop or something like that. We're here, especially as in the Indian community, we're here to showcase that these limits are just they're not true. There's more that we can do than what we're being allowed to do right now.
With your dance academy, you have a couple diabetics in your academy. Is that right?
Yeah, it's actually my founding partner is a type 1 diabetic as well. He was diagnosed when he was 13. So, I can only imagine how difficult it must have been dealing with being a teenager, growing up in America, as well as being a diabetic. A lot of struggles there, but all three of us currently manage it really well, and we've danced and performed throughout North America. We just went to LA in May of last year. Unfortunately, we were going to go again this year, but the competition is canceled right now.
Was it ironic that he was also a type 1, or did the diabetes community kind of like bond you guys together?
It's really funny. He lives in Troy. He's not that far away. He was the captain of the Michigan Bhangra team. That's the type of dance we do, Bhangra. And, I was one of the captains for our independent team based out of Detroit. And we met at a competition in New York, but had never met before that. And we were, I think, in a taxi on the way to an after party. And I saw him pull out his pump. And he's like, oh my God, I just ran out of insulin. I'm like, don't worry, I have my pen with me. Use this. He's like, oh my God, you're diabetic. And I'm like, yeah. Then he ended up paying for the taxi, which was great. So but that's how we met. we bonded, he joined our team, and we started the academy together.
That's amazing. So what's awesome about like our like little group right now that we have going is that we just don't have one type of diabetes. We have all different types of diabetes, especially like right here on our chat. We have type 1, type 2, and Mila, you discussed having type 2 diabetes. Can you talk about just type 2 diabetes in like the social media space, maybe some things that you've encountered?
Yeah, so it's really interesting having type 2 diabetes and being someone who openly talks about it, because not a lot of people with type 2 diabetes like to talk about it. And I think that that often comes from the shame or stigma that they might feel with type 2. And something that I always found interesting, like I love to search hashtags and just see what people are talking about. And one of the things that I did when I was first diagnosed is I kind of looked through a type 2 diabetes hashtag, and it was really interesting to see the perceptions. Like somebody would post a picture of a cupcake and be like, this is going to give me type 2 diabetes. Or they would post a picture of what, you know, you would think the like average person with type 2 diabetes might look like, and kind of label it that way. And so it was really important to me when I was first diagnosed to one, find other people who really wanted to talk about type 2 diabetes and living a healthy life with diabetes and not feeling that shame and stigma, but to also break up those misconceptions about what type 2 diabetes is and who has it and what they look like and what their abilities are, because it's exactly the opposite really of what anybody thinks.
And you do such an amazing job on social media. You like blew up with everything that you're doing right now. I know you have your blog and you just published a little journal. So
I did.
congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, I one of the things that I really like to do to manage diabetes for myself, and it's just like this habit of writing. Like I love to write, and so I thought to myself, like, I wonder if other people would want to have a journal where they don't just log like their food and exercise and maybe like their doses of insulin or medications that they take, but also their sleep patterns and the emotions that they're feeling that day and like all of those other factors that really relate to type 2 diabetes. Because I think whenever you go to the doctor for the first time, most people say in their experience, they're told, eat right, exercise, come back and see me in 3 months for your A1C. And so they think that all you have to do to manage type 2 is changes your diet and exercise, when there are this like host of all of these other factors that really have to do with like the way that your blood sugars ebb and flow. So it was important to me to produce something like that and give people something that they could record those feelings in. And so it's really cool. I'm really excited about it. And it comes out on Cinco de Mayo, which is fun. So I'm gonna have like a little margarita by myself with my little book.
Well, that's amazing. Thank you all that you do on social media. And talking about social media, Kira, you are a superstar on social media. And you also have a type 1 daughter. So can you discuss maybe what like the diabetes community on your social media platform and also what it's like being a mother and daughter in the same house with type 1 diabetes?
Yes. So I started sharing about just my type 1 journey, like kind of right off the bat after being diagnosed 5 years ago. And I think social media has changed even so much just in the last 5 years. I feel like it wasn't quite as loud, not as many people were talking. And so it did feel a little bit scary and vulnerable to like share what felt like such big news for me. And we were in Uganda adopting our son, and then 2 months later started fostering our daughter, who also has type 1, and forever became a part of our family. But because we were 9,000 miles away, I feel like social media was the only way for me to feel connected to other people that were walking this same journey. Diabetes can feel really isolating and lonely sometimes, and then to not even have like my friends or family close by was really hard. And so I like really relied on making friendships online, because that is what got me through some really hard days. It's the way I had questions answered. I didn't have super easy access to an endocrinologist. I couldn't just like hop on the phone and call back to the States. The resources in Uganda are just, very different than they are in the States. And so it was so important for me I think for my own mental health, just to know that there were other people out there that were doing the same thing. And it was, I mean, turned out to be such a blessing because I feel like now some of my absolute best friends all either have type 1 or they're a parent of a type 1 or somehow connected to that. And that's really special for me. It's really special for my daughter because her two best friends, one of them has type 1 and the other one is a sibling of a type 1. And so it's just really cool for her to feel seen and understood. And so, yeah, we just kind of like used, I think Instagram is the main thing that I share on. And then we also like have a blog as well. But Instagram was really kind of where I shared just like our daily life. And at the time it wasn't quite as common. And so, you know, it was just kind of like, this is diabetes. Like, I'm going to tell you what I'm doing. And just, I was kind of learning as I was going. And I realized that there were a lot more of us out there than, you know, when I was first diagnosed. So, yeah, it's been a really, I mean, I want to say cool journey, but, you know, diabetes is never like easy. It's not the best thing to have, but there's been a lot of really positive and beautiful parts to this journey.
And it's so amazing because I've met you and your family with different events in the diabetes community. And just the fact that like you and your family, and especially Zola being so young, she's already involved in the diabetes community at such a young age. And I feel like it took even just like most of us such a long time to find that online and even like in the community diabetes space. So it's incredible, like especially everything, you know, online today, how it just kind of connected us all. And that's kind of, you know, you have a journey with diabetes and same thing here. And you have a daughter with type 1, you're a type 1, and I have a brother with type 1 diabetes. And we were diagnosed a year apart in the 90s. And as many as we all agree on how diabetes education was so different, even the 90s, right? And just like, you know, even like just like 10 years ago, things have like progressed so much. And that's kind of like where I began my diabetes journey was about, I would say on social media was 5 years ago. And I noticed, I just kind of came across a profile one day and saw another diabetic. And I was like, oh my God, there's someone else. There's someone else out there, not just me. And that's what kind of like really like ignited that spark and kind of what brought me into the space. And it's just, I feel like there's just so much information out there. And sometimes as diabetics, we just don't get that. And so now we all became like our own advocates, patient advocates, and we're just doing so much in the diabetes space. But I'm going to take it down to the questions and see if there's a few questions some people have asked, and maybe we could get some questions answered. Let's see here. So it looks like we have a question. I think it was to Kiri. What major life changes do people with 9 diabetes have to be aware of to support our friends and family with diabetes, like diabetes etiquette?
Okay, I'm trying to understand the question. What major life changes? Oh, okay, I think I get it. You know, I feel like answering diabetes questions is sometimes so hard because it's not like a simple answer. I think the very best thing that people did for us was friends who came alongside and just said like, I don't know anything about diabetes, but I want to learn. Like, please teach me. Like, tell me what these words are that you're saying, that you're using. Like, what is this thing on your body? How does it work? Like, that was like the greatest gift to me. You know, people who would say, you know, everybody's always really cautious about food. I think that's kind of like the go-to, which is always such like a sweet gesture. But I think people just saying like, what is this like for you? And like, what can I do to make your day easier? And, you know, being a mom also to a child with type 1 is like a whole nother aspect to it. Cause, you know, as an adult, like I can manage it myself, but then I have a child who that's a lot scarier to hand her over to somebody else. And to have a couple friends that just said like, we want you to feel confident that she can have a sleepover and that like you can have a day off. And those type of things were the absolute best. So if you are somebody who doesn't have type 1, but are looking for a way to support somebody or a family that has type 1, just be willing to like
get in the trenches with them, and like there's going to be hard days, but just learn as best you can like what those things are that they need that really offer them the best support.
Very well said. I agree too. And I think as, you know, when we're living with other people, non-diabetics, I think it's so hard, you know, sometimes not to feel judged when we have a low blood sugar or have a high blood sugar. Sometimes our mood changes, and it's so important, you know, not to like scream and yell or get frustrated, because diabetes is so hard to manage sometimes. Like we have really great days, but we also have some bad days, and we just need support. Sometimes the best way to support us is just kind of like making sure we're okay, but also taking a step back and just letting us, you know, get back to feeling normal again. I don't know if you feel the same, Mila or Sahil, if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I think sometimes, you know, and speaking from the perspective of type 2, sometimes questions that you get, and I think that you guys probably get some of the same questions that I get about diabetes from people who don't know. Sometimes they come from a place of wanting to help or a place of wanting to understand, but they can feel judgmental at times. And so like taking a step back and just realizing that you can give someone just some extra information to help them understand and give examples and kind of show them how you live with it and how you live it out to help them get an idea of what they can do to be there for you.
Right. And I think both of you guys answered it really well. The main thing I've noticed is what works for someone doesn't always work for someone else. Unfortunately, it is somewhat of a trial and error game, and you do need to take things with precaution. If there's something you're interested in, like I know someone asked about the oral medication I take. I asked my endocrinologist if it was okay. She had me wait. She checked some of my monthly, my monthly results, and then she said, "Hey, go ahead and try it now. It's safe to do so." So before trying anything, just talk to your doctor if that's available, and then go ahead and make a decision on what you want to do next.
We have another question here, and this is a great one. What is the biggest piece of advice that you would offer to a child recently diagnosed with type 1?
I can start off that because I don't know life without diabetes. So when I was 5, 6, 7, 8, I had no idea what this was. We used to call it sugar bugs or something like that. And I remember when I went to the doctor, I'm like, "Oh, you're talking about sugar bugs." I didn't even know it was called diabetes. But the most important thing is to let them know that they're not limited to doing, nothing, right? I played like 4 sports in high school, danced all my life. I've done some things academically that, not many people have done, which is phenomenal. And diabetes has never limited me because of that. And so to think that you have this disease and you can't do anything is the completely wrong mindset that no child should ever buy into or believe. And I'm sure Kiri and Mila can answer more to that as well.
Yeah, and even for me, I grew up as a child with diabetes as well as my brother, and I know that we were fortunate enough to attend a diabetes camp, and I know they have them all over the country. But what's also great is that there's also so many scholarships out there as well. So sometimes even if they're a little expensive, there's so many scholarships out there where you can apply, and maybe you could get your child enrolled at a diabetes camp or a day camp. But I know so many organizations across the board, especially JDRF, there's always different activities going on for kids. So definitely involve kids young if you can in the diabetes community, because acceptance early on is just so important. I wish I had just more of it even as a teenager. There's so many lost years, and then when you find that acceptance, you're like, oh my God, I wish I had this like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, because now so many of us are thriving with diabetes and we're doing so much. I know a couple years ago, I was scuba certified, and diabetics at one time weren't able to be a scuba dive. So it's so many, all these stereotypes out there, but it's important that, we break them and know that we're doing so much. We're thriving with diabetes. I don't know, Carrie, Mila?
I mean, I was an adult, and so I think I have a very different perspective because I went 26 years knowing what it's like to live without it. But in my own experience, I wasn't a child, but I think what I heard a lot of right off the bat was like, you have diabetes and here's all the things that you can't do anymore. And that was like the first thing that stuck in my head. And that was so hard for me because I felt like my whole life was like over, like everything was changing. And I think that's why I feel such, it's just so important to talk about all the things you can do with diabetes because there's newly diagnosed families and kids out there that are listening. And like, I think those need to be the voices that are heard. Like, watching people do like really cool, crazy stuff with diabetes, it doesn't have to stop you. So I would just say focus on the positive and the things that you can do and just remind them that it doesn't have to limit you from anything.
We also have another question here. I'm a school nurse who is seeing more young kids being you don't mind, Mila, I know that you do so much in the type 2 community. Do you have any suggestions or resources to help guide people?
Yeah, so I'm a part of the leadership council for Beyond Type 1, even as a type 2, which is really cool. So Beyond Type 1, I feel like is a great resource for people just looking for both basic information about living with type 1 diabetes, but also kind of like this additional layer of seeing people with type 1 diabetes as well. And that's the thing that I think that I appreciate so much and have found to be so important about coping with living with diabetes is knowing that there are other people out there like you, and being able to connect with people on that basic level. And I think we've all found that, you know, all four of us met through social media pretty much. And so it's this really powerful tool. And I think the Beyond Type 1 website is just a great place to go for those stories. But also, like, if you have a question about how to deal with low blood sugar swings, or you want to know kind of what you can or can't eat, or you want to know like, is a pump a better option than MDI? Should I use a CGM? They answer those questions in such easy ways to understand that it's an awesome tool and awesome resource.
Yeah, Beyond Type 1 is amazing. I know they, like you said, they have Beyond Type 2, and they just have an array of amazing resources. So definitely check those out. Okay, I have this one from Chris. What advice do you have for someone on their first year with diabetes? I know for me, it's just, I think finding some sort of support goes such a long way. For me, it was finding the diabetes online community. If you can't attend things in person, you know, there's such an amazing community out there, and getting involved is just, I feel like, will help so much guide newly diagnosed type 1 and type 2 diabetics out there. It'll make you question and it's just, there's just so many different ways to manage your diabetes, and it's never a one size fits all. Diabetes is so different from person to manage and tricks. So, you know, maybe what works for one person might not work. There's so much information out there. Definitely immerse yourself in the community. And if you could find a support group, I think that would definitely, you know, be beneficial. Let's see here. I don't know if anyone has anything to piggyback off of that, or if we could move on to the next question.
I think that was great.
Yeah, that was good, Julia.
Oh, this is a great one from Denise Fatahil. How long does the impact of dance have on your blood sugar?
So, I mean, dance in general is any type of cardio sport, right? I remember from high school and college as well, I ran cross country. So I like to compare the two a lot. You need to be within a good range to make sure you can perform well, but you have to hold on to that. You have to have something to back you up, because you will drop low depending on how long you're participating. We used to have 4 or 5 hour dance practices, and I don't remember when I didn't go low during those times. So I always kept Gatorade and glucose tablets with me. Obviously, so those don't have as much of a health issue as you otherwise would. Like, it's not like I kept candy with me while I was dancing, because that would have been detrimental. But yeah, in short, always keep something with you just to be safe, or you will go low.
And we have another question here for Mila. What advice would you give someone with type 2 that is nervous to talk about their diabetes? How did you build that confidence?
I really love that question.
good.
So when I was first diagnosed, I was really frustrated because I was doing everything that my doctor had told me to do. I lost 30 pounds before I set foot in the doctor's office. I was watching what I ate. I was exercising every single day, an hour a day, intense cardio. And he walked away kind of blaming me, saying, like, if you're 26 years old, you're going to ruin your life. You're in this position that's awful, so you need to change everything. And I was like, but what more can I do? Like, I don't know. And so the first thing I did after I was diagnosed is I went and I literally Googled, like, how do you live with type 2 diabetes, which sounds really dumb, but I was like, I don't know anybody else really who is managing this that's my age and that has like a similar story to me. I want to find someone. And I did find someone, but they told me no. They told me, I don't want to talk to you. I don't write my blog for anyone else. I do it because I want to learn about my diabetes and vent, and that's it. And I don't want to have any connection with anyone else. And so that was really frustrating for me because I was looking for that connection with someone else. And I just thought, if nobody else wants to talk about it, I'm going to do that. And along the way, I kind of noticed the way that people talked about type 2 diabetes and the way that people felt about it. And my goal after that, like after hearing things like, you know, people would say like, well, if you're fat, of course you have type 2 diabetes, or if you probably ate too much sugar and that's why you have diabetes. And that frustrated me to no end. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to prove people wrong. Like, I'm going to show them that the thing that you think about diabetes is like not actually true. And I kind of realized that I was one of the few people doing that. And what gave me confidence in that area was just thinking there's somebody else out there like me who's looking for this exact thing. And when I was looking for it, I really needed someone. Like, I needed somebody to just tell me it's going to be okay. You can live with this. You're going to be all right. And nobody was there. And so I thought, if I could be that person for someone else, it would be really helpful. And I could make them think about their diabetes in a different way. And so that to me kind of built that. And then as more people found my website or found my Instagram and they started saying like, I was looking for this, thank you, I'm so glad you're here, that made me feel like, okay, I did the right thing. And I've always kind of been of the opinion that type 2 diabetes is nothing to be ashamed of. It purely means that your body resists insulin. That's it. And there are things that you have to do to kind of change your lifestyle to make sure that your body is more receptive. And when you think about it in terms like that, instead of thinking about all of the things that you did wrong, it really changes your perspective about how you talk about it and how you live with it.
Wow, amazingly said.
Thank you.
We have a question here for Kiri. What was the hardest thing or most difficult about helping Zola, a young child, understand about her diabetes?
Okay, so our situation was obviously really unique in the sense that Zola was adopted and she didn't speak any English when she joined our family. So like she didn't even understand the word hello. So communication was really hard for us. So in Uganda, I like went to town and bought like a dictionary from her language to English, and I would write things on the wall and tape it up so I could like communicate. That obviously was probably one of the hardest things. Not everybody has that same challenge. I think as a parent, just like your child's like world kind of turned upside down in a way, like everything changes. And in Uganda, there wasn't anybody else that had type 1, so she wasn't exposed to that. And I think that's even, you know, a similar case for people here in the States is like, you know, a kid gets diagnosed and they go back to school after they get that diagnosis, and chances are there's not a lot of kids at school that have diabetes. So I think, you know, they feel different, but trying to really make them understand that this is just a little part of them. It doesn't define who they are. I mean, I think the hardest thing is to explain like it's not going away. You know, she'll say like, so like how long am I mean, not now because she understands, but at first it was like, how long am I going to have diabetes? And that was really hard to explain to, you know, a 6-year-old, like that it's not going away. And so yeah, I mean, it's all hard. I'm not trying to sugarcoat it and make it seem like it was easy, but yeah, I think just helping them to find a new normal, a new rhythm, but just making them feel as normal as possible is so important.
That's incredible, and I think that's so important. And the fact that you help guiding her, and the fact that you understand everything she's going through, that is just like incredible. And I'm sure it's just a very special bond between you two.
Yeah, I will say like, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you know, it's a unique situation to have type 1 and also be the parent to a type 1. And I think it gives me just a really great understanding of what she's going through and what it's like for her as much as I can. Obviously, being a child and adult is very different, but you know, there's a lot of moms that will say like, can you explain to me what like high blood sugar feels like? Because like I don't feel that. Like I watch my child go through that, but I don't know what it feels like. And I mean, obviously nobody wants to have diabetes, but like, I think that it's really special that like, I really can understand those things to like best advocate for her.
And I know Fiona asked a question, and she said that she's had a hard time finding local diabetes. She's attended a few different type 1 events and recently joined the Beyond Type 1 app, which has been great, but just haven't had much luck. Any advice? And Fiona, I could definitely take the lead on this one. So I'm here, I'm based in Detroit Metro, and we have diabetes meetups once a month. So we try to get like, I know like we have like adult type 1 meetup that we do, which is monthly. But I know that, like I said, different organizations will definitely host different events depending on what age group you're looking for. And that is such a great way to connect with other diabetics, because you just never know who you're going to meet one day and they turn out to be, you know, maybe one of your best diabuddies ever. When I went to camp, this was like, I feel like it's been like 20 years since camp, but I speak to 2 of the girls to this day that I went to camp with, and we've moved all over, right? Everyone has like different directions in life, but like in 2020, like we're still connected. We started off as pen pals, and to this day, now we could just like, you know, FaceTime and meet up. So I think it's just finding, you know, maybe also things online. I know if you're on Facebook, if you're able to be on Facebook or any social media platform, there's so many amazing diabetes support groups. And I know some of those groups do a lot of in-person meetups as well. I'm not sure if Kiri or Mila or Sahil, if you have anything to add to just finding
same thing you said.
I think too, like in the spirit of like, if you can't find it, start it, you know, like you can just branch out and reach out to people that you may know locally, or reach out to like local chapters and just ask like if they have anything that is happening. And if they don't, ask if you can be the person to kind of take it on and build it and help people grow those connections.
Amazing.
Love that.
And I think we have just a few more moments, so maybe we can wrap up. This one might be interesting for all of us because we handle our diabetes differently. But we have a question here that says, how long does exercise affect your blood sugar? Is it hours? Is it days? And I know that this answer is going to be completely different for every single person here. So Sahil, is that something you may be able to start us off with?
Yeah, sure. I can start. With dance and any level of cardio I've done, my sugar starts getting low right away. However, when I lift weights or exercise in that essence, my sugar goes up. It's interesting why it happens like that. So I constantly keep my pump on me when I'm lifting weights or exercising. But if I'm doing anything cardiovascularly related, I'll take everything off and make sure I'm not getting anything in excess.
And I know for me, when I'm working out, I always try to like have a time where I'm going to work out. It's not just kind of like sporadic, because that way I can really plan according to what I'm going to do that day, whether it's cardio or whether it's weights, because I know with cardio, your blood sugar could drop quickly. So it's important that you see your blood sugar before you enter the gym. If you know you're going to be doing cardio that day, maybe have a light little snack beforehand, just so it kind of carries you. I like my blood sugars I rather have them on more of the higher side than lower side, just so I have that wiggle room if I do drop a little bit. And then I know for weights, for me, is that my blood sugars will either stay like exactly like when I enter the gym, or they'll just like start to spike. And there's all different reasons for all that. But it really, I feel like it's so important to kind of like have a plan. That way you can kind of just be able to really just manage it the best you can while working out.
Hey, Jillian?
Yes, ma'am.
5-minute warning. So can you maybe look for the 2 best last questions? And we've got 5 minutes before I need to prepare for our next panelist.
Okay, here. I know that we have a question right here in front of me. What is the best diet you found to help manage your blood sugar levels? And that question was directed for Mila.
For me, honestly, carb counting just works best. I like to eat everything that I can eat. And I manage it best by just kind of like figuring out what things do spike me, what things don't. And then working from that kind of like base knowledge. So like, I know that if I'm eating like a pretty low carb dinner, I'm okay to have dessert afterward, as long as I kind of like stay within a realm. So I don't really follow anything in particular. I just kind of do what feels right. And that's probably not helpful at all, but it's the way it's worked best for me. And I kind of find that when I don't limit myself and I don't kind of like take the approach of like, I can't have this or I can't have that, I always tend to do much better and kind of stay within the boundaries that I place for myself.
And I'm the same way with that. I feel like there's just no specific diet that I follow. It's just, I feel like I will have anything and eat anything, but just everything's in moderation and just making sure that I give myself the appropriate insulin. I feel like there's just no really like rules of like what I can and cannot eat. But I know we have like another minute or two, and I know a couple people here were actually asking about where to find us on social media. And one of the questions, Kiri, was if you have a YouTube channel. I don't know if everyone wants to just kind of say where they can be found on social media. You want to start, Kiri?
Yeah, so I mainly hang out on Instagram. It's called Grace and Salt. And then we also have a website, and it's graceandsalt.net.
And you have an incredible Etsy shop, by the way. Mila, for you?
I am the Hangry Woman everywhere. So if you just search for the Hangry Woman, you'll find me everywhere I am.
And Sahil, where can we all find you?
Well, I know you know how reluctant I was to start an Instagram, but it seems like everyone is there. So I just made one very recently. It's just at Sahil Mehta 313. And then I also use it for my DJ page, DJ Suga, SUGA 313.
Is that like a diabetes reference?
Yeah, it was purely based on something diabetic related.
And for me, I'm on across the board like Mila, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, everything is at T1D Chick. But thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you for everybody for participating on our virtual today. And if anyone has any questions beyond like our little virtual, you can always reach out, I'm sure, to any of us on social media, and we could help answer any questions that you might have.
All right, sorry, get my sound back on. Thank you so much. It was really, really entertaining, engaging, and learned so much. I really wish we would have gotten Sahil to do a dance. I didn't think about that ahead of time. So I really wish that would have happened. And Mila, it was great having your type 2 voice here. I think that has been missing the last few days. And all of your voices were just wonderful today. So thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting JDRF.